sport has the power to change the world.
What a year it's been for Laureus South Africa, as they've continued to not only grow both in reach and reputation, but also, as importantly, through all their various partners, been able to engage greater numbers of young South Africans committed to a brighter future through sport. My name's Jean Smythe, and you're listening to the Power of Sport podcast, where this edition we go to the heart of the organization here in South Africa. In many respects, the spiritual home of the Laureus Sport for Good Foundation. I join Executive Director Brett Graham in his office to reflect on 2017, what to look forward to in 2018, and how could we describe him in one word? Well, naturally, we asked his colleagues that put up with him day to day. Thank you for your continued support throughout the year by subscribing on iTunes, as well as listening to us via Omni Radio. And of course, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Welcome to the Power of Sport and hashtag Laureus South Africa 2017. So it's certainly been a memorable year, not only this podcast coming into fruition, but for the foundation. 25 programs here in South Africa and highlights including the World Sports Awards, road trips, summits, project visits, ambassador contributions, and royal blitzes. It's been a whirlwind, and none more so than for Brett Graham, who I sat down with at his office at the Sports Science Institute in Cape Town.
Yeah, it's gone incredibly quickly, Jean. I think we were sitting together at the beginning of this year planning what we wanted to do with the podcast and how we wanted to get things up and running. I mean, as well as a whole shoal of other kind of plans and concepts for the year. Yeah, it's shot by, and here we are at the end of a year and 10 or 11 podcasts later. So, crazy year, really busy. But, I think in this space, busy means positive. So we're seeing impact as a result of that, definitely.
Yeah, and it's been all about the Power of Sport, which is the name of the podcast. Do you remember what was in the first podcast, just some of the content, out of interest?
I do. I remember, obviously, the concept being to use the awards as the launch pad. So we had, I remember David Coulthard, we had Michael Johnson, we had Gary Player, we had Wade. On there. So we had a few names from sports. I mean, obviously, great that we could be in Monaco to get things up and running. Yeah, so I think that was it. Who've I missed out on there?
Usain was in there. Usain Bolt, right. Simone Biles. It really was a glamorous event, and I mean, I'm so pleased that it's going back to Monaco in many respects. I know that it's always key to take it around and take it to new audiences in many respects, but Monaco does kind of feel like the heart and the soul in many respects around what Laureus stands for, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as you know, our first 4 awards were in Monaco, and so, as you say, very much a strong heritage that comes out of that venue. Certainly the glitz and the glamour side of things, being in Monte Carlo, being in the Monaco Sporting Club, where the very first awards in 2000 were held. That was pretty special. I remember pointing out to Mornay Duplessis, our chairman, and to Rake Neetling, one of our ambassadors at the awards this year, that it was 17 years ago that Mornay was stood up on stage there with President Mandela when he spoke the iconic words of sport having the power to change the world. So very cool for us to be back. Even more so than that, having a South African program on the night win the International Sport for Good Award in Waves for Change. So very special evening, I think, for the South Africans in the room. Yeah.
Well, let's speak about the programs that you guys back, and you mentioned Waves for Change. You got a lot of kudos this year, and certainly were highlighted around the world on the global stage. But you guys do assist with the most projects of any territory in the world. I think it's up to 25 now. How rewarding has it been from a project point of view this year?
Incredible. I mean, we were talking about it in our strat meeting last week with the team that 2 years ago we had 13 programs that we were funding and looking after in South Africa, and we look back now 2 years later after obviously a significant amount of money that has been invested in us, which is fantastic, and we've been able to realize that investment on the ground, and we're up to 25 programs, almost double what we were 2 years ago. But more importantly, not just the number of programs, but I think a lot of these programs that we work with are multi-site programs, right? So the better figure for me always when we talk about this is it's over 100 communities around South Africa that we're engaged in, where our funding and support is kind of reaching that number of communities in such a short space of time. So most certainly the plan is to, as ever, when you're in the sector, grow. When we grow, when our funding base grows, that's that's more impact taking place on the ground. So that's certainly the plan for 2018 is to grow that number of programs and ultimately the number of lives that you change.
I was very lucky this year, I felt, to attend quite a few of the different activations that you guys had across the country, and I've got a couple of highlights. I mean, seeing some of those youngsters travelling from East London to PE for the first time. I'm meeting some of the world's best surfers, and some of the breakfasts that we attended, and seeing the likes of a Dean Furman interact with some of the programs, and those type of things. Is there any particular highlight that sticks out for you?
I think you mentioned the kind of road trip we did with Waves for Change. I mean, I think that was pretty cool. We've never done anything like that, where we've taken one program and spent a few days and taken them from kind of their home base to something very special to them. A lot of these guys, their outlet is surfing. Certainly, the East London program where we started, following up with the PE site for Waves the next day, and then taking these guys to almost, if I could call it the Shangri-La of surfing in South Africa at J Bay. And a lot of these iconic surfers from around the world being there, and these kids who might not necessarily know the names, but they see the skill. They see these sportsmen doing something pretty incredible out on the waves that they want to replicate in some way, shape or form. So, I think that was very special for me, seeing those kids. I mean, I think in particular, we all met Jasmine for the first time on that trip, who was a very special young lady, and, she became part of our breakfast panel at one of the sporting breakfasts later in the year. And again, she was with us a month ago at a panel discussion here at the Sports Science Institute. So we uncovered a very special young lady there, and, there's more to come, I'm sure, from that. But certainly the highlight for me was that road trip, I
think she might be a future presidential candidate, judging from some of the responses she got.
Political skills.
Yeah. You mentioned as well the network, the ambassador network. So as much as you have what's happening on the ground, and amazing, incredible young people in their communities making real and effecting real positive change. What is important is the support you guys get from an ambassador network as well. And it's been a good year, I would say, in that respect.
Absolutely. I mean, look, they're the core to what Laureus is as an organization, right? So, we've got the awards as an incredible communications platform. We have the foundation, really, that is the channel for all of this in order to be able to implement. But really the glue that brings that all together is the ambassadors, and obviously above that, the initial champions, the World Sports Academy. Without their voluntary time and efforts that they give to us, we wouldn't be able to, I think, have certainly as much effect in the communities in terms of raising a spotlight on what these community champions are doing. But I think also, in a way, bridging that kind of marketing CSI sphere that we tap into from a Laureus organization perspective. Our ambassadors are key to that. And as you know, this year we were fortunate to put together a pretty special summit in Mauritius, where we took our 25 programs and we took 10 of our ambassadors away, and how we changed the agenda this year for the conference, for our summit, was to integrate the ambassadors more. So it wasn't just about them kind of dropping in and saying hi and spending time. We really wanted there to be some learning for the ambassadors from that, more to empower them as advocates for what we do, but I think also for them to realize that we value their contribution to the organization, and we want to take that contribution to another level.
As much as the ambassadors, programs, partnerships as well, and Mercedes-Benz this year have been absolutely phenomenal. Our adventure, certainly. Their ongoing support, I know, is huge, and spending time at their facility was a particular highlight for me. Just talk to us a little bit about the very special relationship, not only here on the ground, but from a global perspective as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're very fortunate with Mercedes-Benz. As you said, it is a global partnership. They're, in effect, our parents, between Daimler and Richemont, founding patrons of the entire Laureus organization. So from a Mercedes-Benz South Africa perspective, they really jumped on board 3 years ago at a significant level, taking over from where Discovery Health left off as the country patron of Laureus in South Africa. And their investment has increased significantly every year from that first year through to where we are now. They've invested a lot into sport for development in this country. We've been fortunate to be able to be the implementers of that with them. It's changed us from a foundation of 5 staff members to now a foundation of 8 staff members. We've got an office opening up in Johannesburg in 2018. It's really has redefined the landscape for us as a national foundation in South Africa. And as you say, I think we're in a fortunate position where we're able to do pretty much what, a lot of the visions that we've put in place, we've been able to achieve as a result of having that investment behind us. Look at the podcast that we started now. Without that investment, we wouldn't have been able to realize that concept. And it gives us an incredible platform able to share the work of our programs, the nature of the relationship with our ambassadors, etc. So yeah, I mean, we really are thankful for them, and thankful to other partners as well who've come on board, over the last few years and contributed, the likes of JP Morgan, Sun International, who provides so much value to us in terms of accommodation requirements, venue requirements, etc. We've had the likes of UBS contributing to us this year. We've got an incredible relationship with the Cape Wheel, as you know, with Mr. Ron Bussink and the Cape Wheel, which we're very thankful for. So we're fortunate that there's multiple streams that are feeding into what we're trying to achieve, with Laureus. So yeah, very thankful.
A word on your fellow colleagues here. We are sitting at your offices. I'm going to venture the word an eclectic, perhaps slightly mad bunch, but you do work with a special group of people, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's in many respects how we're able to do what we do. It's not easy to work in many of the communities we do. As I mentioned earlier, we with this kind of windfall in funding at the back end of last year, we had to restructure ourselves internally. So we've gone through like a staff restructuring. We've got a head of programs in Kieran Roberts, Zulfa Abrams, our head of operations. We never had the opportunity to have a marketing person here, so we've been able to resource ourselves in that role, and Nikki Ferreira, who worked on the marketing side of things here at Sports Science, moved a couple of doors down, and she joined us, should I say, earlier this year. We've got also a new position this year in monitoring evaluation, which is so key to many of the programs that we fund, allowing us to really showcase impact. So we've got Cindy Mendoza, who's joined us there. We've got Jill Benting, who, as you know, has come through the YES program and now finds herself managing the YES program, which is a great story, and hopefully that's not the first time we hear of this type of scenario within the Laureus network. We've also got a gentleman now, Gresham Shingani, who's going to start with us next year in working in the Joburg office that I mentioned earlier that we're going to be setting up. So incredible that we've been able to increase our staff complement, and it's a core backbone to this organization.
If I go and ask your team for one word to describe you, what are they going to say?
Probably cheesy would be one, I'm sure.
Not charming.
No. I'm not too sure. I'm a bit scared for the responses, but definitely cheesy, I would think, would be a recurring theme.
Kieran Roberts, one word to describe Brett Graham.
Witty.
Nikki Ferreira.
Human Google. It's 2 words, I know.
Zulfa.
Humorous.
Are you guys for real? You have referenced some of what lies ahead of you in 2018. Can you pick out a couple of highlights people should be looking out for and that you are looking to hit from a personal and professional point of view?
As you know, awards sneaking up on us pretty quickly, 27th of Feb in Monaco. And so another great platform for us there to network, and certainly from a South African standpoint, being able to showcase the work that we're doing on the ground. So that's obviously front of mind at the moment for us within the Laureus organization. We're working again towards a summit again next year. We're just trying to resolve whether it'll be our global summit coming to South Africa or whether we'll just be hosting our national summit with our program. So we'll hopefully know that in Q1 of next year. We have got a couple of exchanges planned with our programs. So first and foremost, we've got the Cool Play rugby program. We've got them going across to Hong Kong as part of a project exchange, using our partnership with the Hong Kong Sevens as an official charity as the basis for this. But it'll allow these 12 young men to get to Hong Kong, a bit of a cultural learning for them, as well as them being able to share best practice and engage with another rugby program in Hong Kong that we fund and support, Operation Breakthrough. We'll have our chairman, Morne Duplessis, out there hosting the guys, as well as Jean de Villiers, our ambassador. So really it's an incredible opportunity for these guys, and we do something similar later in the year in July, which is a boxing-themed exchange to the favelas in Rio, where we're taking a few young men across to Rio, from Fight with Insight. So that's Anton Gilmore and Luke Lumprecht that will be leading that from a project perspective. So that's two unique opportunities that are created next year, should I say. And then the other, I guess, key element that we tried to ramp up into 2018 off the success of 2017 was creating workshop environments for our programs around the country. So workshop hubs in Joburg, Cape Town, Durban, and next year we'll be focusing on various themes from governance to monitoring and evaluation, fundraising. We've got 5 5 different workshop themes that we'll be putting in place. And that's just really part of, outside of the funding that we provide to programs, also being able to build their capacity and empower them further to walk down this road. So that's certainly key from our side. And then, as you know, with our friends at Mercedes-Benz, there's always a lot on from an activation standpoint. We had 6 successful breakfasts this year. I look forward to 6 more next year with the Mercedes-Benz team, and we've already started the planning on that with relevant sporting themes. So there'll be more to come from that side. And then finally, the podcast. It kind of goes from strength to strength. We've had a good first year, certainly from our perspective, in terms of the listenership and the base we've been able to reach out to. Some incredible stories out there that exist within our programs, as well as within our the various events that we host and ambassadors, etc. So looking forward to, I think off the back of what we discussed, almost doubling our output next year in terms of how many podcasts we put on. And looking at our calendar, it looks like we're going to need it. So exciting 2018 ahead for us, I think.
Laureus South Africa is overseen by a board of trustees, including iconic South African Monaco du Plessis as chairman, and Graham paid tribute to their support during the course of this year.
Yeah, a tremendous amount. It's, as you said, it's been a long time that I've been fortunate to be associated with Laureus, 17 years now. So 23-year-old, wet behind the ears, 2-year holiday work visa in London, got me across to Monaco within my first month of being out there, and watching Madiba stand on stage and holding the attention of all these incredible sportsmen and women was a pretty special moment to me. And then to top it all off, to then be introduced to Madiba and have him, kind of give us a few words of motivation about how much our country needs young people to be positive. It was certainly a defining moment for me, and it holds a very special place in my heart, Laureus, in terms of what we're trying to do on the ground. And I think as much as it's a global organization, there's such a strong spirituality from a South African standpoint that links into the organization in terms of its founder, Dr. Johan Rupert, and how that kind of seed grew to what this Laureus organization is now. So it's certainly proud for me to look back and see 2004 programs around the world to now over 150 programs around the world. It's an incredible story. And, we're fortunate to work in a space where positivity is a currency that we use on a daily basis. And we see some of the most incredible young men and women here in this country come out of these programs. I know you've been fortunate to see some of them over your time working closely with us. So there is so much hope that we see on a daily basis amidst all the kind of doom and gloom that we read in the papers. I can assure you that there's a lot of positivity coming out of these programs. So, very special for me to, in some way, shape or form, be part of that.
The Laureus Foundation and Sport for Good seems to have a way of ensnaring positively all those that come into contact with it. For Graham, his position and his journey are simply much more than just a profession, as he emotionally recounts. Brett, as much as you and your office drive this organization, you're supported by a group of individuals that are impressive in their own rights, and your chairman, Monaco du Plessis. Just a couple of words on him and the Board of Trustees, their impact this year.
Look, I think we're very fortunate to have the Board of Trustees that we do have. Incredibly supportive group of people who, have been part of this growth. Many of them have been involved with the board since the very beginning. And so certainly the change that we've gone through over the last couple of years, they've been very supportive to provide the necessary support for growth, right? It's easy to talk about growth, but it's another thing to actually make it happen. And so, we're fortunate that under Mornay's stewardship over all these years, we've got a sound board that is really keen on growth, but at the same time certainly provides the parameters that we need as a management team, that we can at least manage the strategic side of things, but have a board that's in place, keeping us in line, if I could say. And, Mornay, from a chairman perspective, I think it's incredible how much time he devotes to this organization, certainly more so now that he is officially retired, and spends quite a bit of time, hands-on with us in the office. And then if I could just say across the board, Marlene Kutsia George, Ntambi Rivele, Ian Banner, the initial CEO of Laureus, Dr. Craig Nossel from Discovery, and our ambassador Deshan Daisel, and then also our friends at Mercedes-Benz, Mr. Johannes Fritz, that kind of sets up our board. Yeah, just a really supportive bunch, and certainly from the team and myself, just a big thank you to them for guiding us through 2017, and we're looking forward to an even better 2018.
Inspiring stuff indeed, and a personal thanks from myself and the production team to all those at Laureus South Africa for their support during the year. There's one final episode of the Power of Sport to come in 2017, our end of year special, where we'll be telling you about the Laureus Yes graduation that took place in East London, a feature interview with star South African sprinter Kani Sambina.
You know, I'm always looking to improve. I'm always looking to do best in everything I do. And, you know, if I'm put onto a 200 list and they tell me now I need to run 200, I'll make sure that I'll put up my best on the track.
And we reflect on the year that was in the Power of Sport and pick some of our very best highlights.
For me, most importantly, it was a journey of self-discovery most of the time, because I got to learn on how I can make myself better as a person and as a coach for my kids.
Thank you for subscribing, downloading and sharing. Until next time, cheers.